They whispered behind his back. Why was a man like him, Harold Whitmore, billionaire developer, white powerful, suddenly obsessed with his maid? They didn't see what he saw. Not yet. She arrived on time, spoke only when spoken to, wore thrifted clothes, cleaned quietly, and then left. No one looked twice, not until Harold did. The first time he followed her after work, it wasn't suspicion, it was curiosity. But what he found shattered everything he thought he knew. About her, about himself, about truth. This story is based on true emotions, real-world power dynamics, and the hidden lives people walk past every day. Watch closely, because by the end, you'll question everything you assumed about class, race, and power. Like, share and subscribe if you believe every story deserves to be told. Harold Whitmore didn't know why he couldn't stop thinking about her. Clara wasn't flashy. She didn't try to impress. She did her job with quiet grace and vanished before anyone remembered her name. But lately, something didn't sit right. It wasn't how she moved. It was how she avoided being seen. One Friday evening, as the sun dipped beneath the skyline of Riverbend Estates, Harold watched her leave from his office window. Then, on instinct, he grabbed his coat. He didn't tell security. Didn't call for his car. He followed her, on foot. Clara walked briskly down Hillside Lane, took a shortcut through the train yard, and slipped onto a rusted city bus that reeked of sweat and silence. Harold sat 3 seats behind her, his baseball cap low. She stared out the window, her eyes catching the golden blur of streetlights and children running barefoot along cracked sidewalks. The bus pulled into South Pines, a place Harold had only ever seen on the news, when they covered gang violence or poverty statistics. Clara stepped off and walked toward a crumbling 2-story community center. From the outside, it looked abandoned. Then Harold heard it. Singing. Inside, it was standing room only. Children, dozens of them, singing in harmony, laughing, painting, learning. And Clara? She was at the front of the room, teaching. Not cleaning. Teaching. She wasn't a maid here. She was a leader. All right, next group. Who remembers the poem we practiced? She smiled, radiating warmth Harold had never seen in his marble-floored kitchen. A boy raised his hand. Miss Clara, are we doing a song for the festival? Yes, baby, she said, brushing his cheek. We're going to let them hear us. We're not invisible. Harold's chest tightened. He slipped outside, heart pounding, not because he was caught, but because he had no idea who she truly was. The next morning, he asked her a simple question while she folded linens. Do you like working here? She looked up, cautious. It pays. That's not what I asked. Silence. Then, gently, she said, Mr. Whitmore, some people ask questions because they want to change things. Others ask to feel better about not doing anything. Which one are you? Harold was stunned. Days passed. He watched her more closely. She'd clock out, then clock in, into the real work, feeding, teaching, loving the community everyone else ignored. He learned she'd lost her son to a police shooting, that she once had a degree in education, but after legal fees, she couldn't renew her license. The world stripped her down, but she rebuilt herself in silence, not to rise above, but to lift others. One evening, Harold walked into the boardroom of his foundation. He placed a folder on the table. Inside it, a plan to fund Clara's community center, expand it, and build for more across the state. This isn't charity, he said. It's reparative justice. They pushed back. He pushed harder. Within weeks, South Pines had a new wing, a library, a health clinic, and one very surprised Clara. What did you do? She whispered, tears welling in her eyes. Harold replied softly, You weren't invisible. I just hadn't learned how to see yet. Clara's name was suddenly everywhere. What started as a quiet gesture of expansion turned into a headline. Billionaire backs Black community leader in South Pines. Some called it noble. Others called it calculated. Clara didn't care. She had books to shelve, kids to feed, lives to rebuild. But not everyone wanted her star to rise. Especially not Rachel Whitmore, Harold's daughter. Dad, what exactly are you doing? Rachel hissed across his mahogany desk one morning. Giving away our foundation's money to some social experiment? Harold looked up from the progress report. She's not a social experiment. She's doing more for the city than half the officials in office. Rachel scoffed. She's a maid, Dad. You let her scrub our floors. Now you're putting her on the board. Harold didn't flinch. Exactly. That's the problem. You saw her as help. I saw her as hope. Rachel's eyes narrowed. So this is your redemption arc now? Elevating your black maid so you can sleep better at night. No, this is me finally waking up. That week, Clara received an official invitation. She was to be honored at the mayor's gala for her work in underserved communities. It should have been her proudest moment. But the night before the event, something happened. Clara stepped outside the center after a long tutoring session. The air was cold and the street unusually quiet. She approached her car and froze. The windshield was shattered. The words "Go back" spray painted across the hood in red. Her tires slashed. Tears stung her eyes, not from fear, but from exhaustion. She wasn't shocked. She was simply tired, but she wasn't backing down. She walked back inside, made a call. "Mr. Whitmore, I need to talk." The next day, Harold arrived at the center with his driver and his lawyer. "I've already filed a police report," Clara said, arms crossed. "But we both know how slow they move when it's us." Harold nodded, "Which is why I brought this." He handed her a folder. Inside, the deed to the building, now in her name. Complete ownership. She looked at him, stunned. "This isn't just support anymore," Harold said. "This is protection. If they try to come for this, they'll have to go through you, and you're not alone." At the gala, Clara walked in with her head high. The room fell silent, not because of her dress, though she looked stunning in royal blue, not because of who she was with, Harold at her side, but because they didn't expect her to come at all. Rumors had already spread. Some whispered about the vandalism. Others blamed her for turning the foundation political. But Clara stood on stage, looked out over the polished crowd, and said, "I was never meant to be here. But the truth is, I've always been here. Just not where you were looking." Applause followed. But one person didn't clap. Rachel. She sat at the back, seething. Later that night, she met with 2 board members over wine. "She's changing too much too fast," one said. "And Whitmore's letting her," Rachel added. "She's not just cleaning up the community. She's scrubbing out our control." A plan began to form. One that didn't need fire or vandalism. Just a little exposure. 3 days later, Clara's name was on every screen, but not for the gala. A local blog leaked a photo of her holding a protest sign from 10 years earlier. The headline read, "Woman behind Whitmore's foundation expansion, once called police murderers." Sponsors pulled out. Donors paused. Harold called her immediately. "They're twisting your past." "I don't regret it," Clara said. "My son was killed, Harold. I said what I felt, and I'll say it again." Harold hesitated. "I know, but this could shut everything down." Clara took a breath. Then maybe it should. If truth costs us support, we never had it in the first place. But not everyone abandoned her. Within hours, students from the center posted a video defending her. Former teachers, grieving mothers, community leaders, all came forward. The movement became louder than the scandal. Harold scheduled a press conference. Clara didn't want to speak, but this time she had to. Standing on the steps of City Hall, she said, "You call me a maid. I cleaned homes. But I've also cleaned wounds the city refuses to acknowledge. You judge me for what I said when I was in pain. But maybe it's time we listen to pain, not punish it." Rachel watched it all unfold from her penthouse suite, seething as the video hit 5 million views in 24 hours. But Harold didn't care about numbers anymore. That night, he told Clara, "You didn't just change this foundation. You changed me." Clara smiled faintly. "You didn't find me, Mr. Whitmore. I was never lost. You just finally looked." They thought she was invisible, disposable, replaceable. But in the end, she stood taller than anyone who ever looked down on her. Reflection question: Have you ever underestimated someone, only to discover their quiet power changed everything? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk. If this story moved you, hit like. Don't forget to subscribe for more real, raw, and powerful stories every week. Black voices deserve to be heard. Always.